Hi, I'm Dr. Amir Khan. I'm a GP in Yorkshire and a wildlife and climate enthusiast.
Hi, I'm Tasha Savage. I am a member of the Lancashire Wildlife Trust Youth Council, and I am hopping mad about toads and all things slimy. Do you find a lot of people are having eco-anxiety at the moment? Do you think that's a big factor in sort of the mental health of people currently?
Yeah, so as a GP, we see people with all sorts of issues related to their mental health. And certainly over the last few months and even years, I would say I'm seeing an increased number of young people in particular coming to talk about anxiety that is specifically related to climate change. The term is now eco-anxiety. And it's a new phenomenon, I think, as concerns around the climate change problem rises and the urgency it goes up, it features a lot on people's minds, and it can feel overwhelming for them. And I think when I speak to them, I think that the big question for them really is, what can they do to help, and how can they alleviate their anxieties? I think it's important to say to them that they're not alone. There'll be lots of people feeling exactly the same. And even though it's predominantly young people that I see with it, it's not exclusively young people, and there will be older people feeling that way as well. And it is important to talk about it with someone. It could be a healthcare professional, it could be a friend or a family person. So talking does help, and acknowledge that there are things that you can do to help, and there's things that you can't do, and some things are out of your control. But every little thing that anyone does can make a difference. I think it's also important to say, take a break from the anxiety around climate change, because you can end up watching lots of things on TV, on social media. Yes, and that just adds to the worry. And although it's important to be aware of things, it's also important to take regular breaks from kind of outlets that might be feeding into your anxiety. So try and find that balance of being empowered and educated, but also having a little bit of time for yourself. And if you feel that your anxiety feelings are stopping you from doing the things that you would normally do, that's when it's really important to talk to a healthcare professional.
I remember being in like primary and secondary school and learning about climate change and thinking, oh, well, when I grow up, it'll all be sorted. And, by the time I'm in the big wide world, we'll know what to do. And it's the exact same, and it feels like nothing's changed. And it can be quite scary when you think about, I'm trying to, have my reusable coffee cups, and I'm not using straws, and I'm recycling my plastic every day. But then, governments are making these big decisions that I don't influence as much. And it begins to, you get stuck in this loop of, well, the big decisions are out of my control. So what's the point in trying to do the little things? Where, like you said, doing the little things sometimes just gets you through the day and really helps sort of put that anxiety to rest. Doing like a litter pick, or I like to do a toad patrol at spring, which is where you pick up toads off roads. I always say a bucket of toads a day keeps the anxiety away for like the rest of the year.
I love that. And you know what? You're absolutely right, because not only are you doing that fantastic work helping toads or cleaning beaches, that going outdoors, just being outdoors in itself is good for your mental health. And that often you're doing it as part of a team, so you're not feeling lonely or isolated, which can feed into mental health issues as well. So I think, certainly those little things that we all can do every day, like you mentioned, changing the cups that we drink out of, not using plastic when we can avoid it, is really, really important. But those group activities are really good for your mental health as well as for your local environment. And I think that often gets lost, when people think, well, what can I do? But actually, you can do lots that will help the environment and yourself. And it makes a massive difference to your mental health. And often you're more active when you're outdoors, so your physical health improves as well. The message that people need to know is that, by helping the environment, by improving biodiversity, we are helping ourselves. By improving air quality, burning less fossil fuels, you reduce your risk right now of cardiovascular disease, of certain cancers, of lung conditions. It improves your immune system. All of these are very very factual things and immediate benefits that we can feel, as well as those long-term benefits to future generations.
I was very lucky where I grew up, sort of in the heart of the Shropshire Hills, and I was one of those people that had nature a 5-minute walk away. As a kid living in a single parent family who was constantly on the breadline, I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have the green space, because as much as I didn't have other things, you know, I always had the Shropshire Hills, I always had the woods, I always had somewhere to go. And moving to Greater Manchester was a bit of a shock, because I was just like, oh, where do I go? Everything's a building. Where's my forest? Where's my hills? Where's my nature?
And that difference that you described between your where you grew up to where you live now, I think is really, really important, because it talks about access to these areas. You know, we know about the health benefits to being in green spaces, and it starts, you know, right from childhood, from pregnancy. You know, even pregnant women who have access to green areas, trees, that kind of thing, have babies with better birth weights, higher birth weights than those who don't, than people from inner city areas that live, you know, from poorer backgrounds, have less access to these green spaces, and it's really important that we try and redress that imbalance. Yes, we might need more houses because Britain needs more houses, but how do we make housing estates more nature friendly?
I know the Wildlife Trust is trying to push through planning reforms to make it into law that, you know, these sort of new build estates, and if you're building areas and new houses, you know, you have to have nature 5-minute walk away. You have to bring nature into the new build.
And I think, you know, by saying we have to make it into law, I think that's, you know, it can no longer be a recommendation. We've gone past that stage of you know, saying, well, we recommend this, and it's soft kind of wording around it. It has to be law. And this idea from the Wildlife Trust about having 30% of our lands and seas protected for wild spaces and wildlife, I think is key. It has to be law for it to work.